All right. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for making the time after a long day. We really appreciate it. I'm Julie Cantillon, the Associate Director for Schools, and I'm co-hosting this webinar with Ms. Emily Sility from St. Mary Escondido, and then Ms. Julie Michler from St. Mary's Press is also coming on to our at some point. So we'll get started. We have about 12 new fourth grade teachers this year. So we felt that we wanted to make sure that something was available to help bring you up to speed on the expectations from the bishops of California with regard to this, the curriculum and the modules that you'll be seeing. I also want to mention we do have Mr. Elijah Bonde, who's principal at Nativity Prep Academy, on the call, and he helped to facilitate the May session. And so he may be jumping into with some additional information or some context. So I appreciate Elijah being here, so thank you. All right. We're going to begin with a video about why we're here. So this is Bishop Clark, and he is from the Archdiocese of Edmonton. And so he provides an overview of how this all came about, these mission modules that we are now, as the Catholic schools in California are all required to implement starting this year.
Hi, I'm Bishop Edward Clark from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. You are about to embark on a great adventure. You will be traveling by technology and imagination into the world of California's Native American tribes and the history of the California mission. Experience the daily life of our California Indians and the genuine holiness and humanity of Padre Nicaro Serra, who Pope Francis canonized as saint in 2015 for his tireless missionary work. When this father of the California missions was declared a saint, the bishops of California made a solemn promise to our Native American communities that we would help them to tell the full and true story of their history, life, and experience before, during, and after a brief period of the mission. It is an exciting but often sad story, especially in the years following the closing of the mission. Still, it is a story of faith, endurance, and hope. It is also a story of healing, redemption, and forgiveness, and a story of respect for the first peoples of our nation. I hope you will enjoy this great adventure.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who didn't know, this originally started with the bishops of California, again, to better reflect the modern understandings of the mission era and the relationship between the Spanish civil authority, the Catholic missions, and the local Indian tribes. So the California Catholic Conference announced in 2015 that they would like to review and revise the cultural content and displays at the California mission. So they started with looking at what was presented at the California. Most of our students have the opportunity to visit, but then they realized that it would have a much bigger impact too if we worked with our Catholic schools. So I'm going to move that out of the way here. All right, so it started again with that Catholic conference of which all of our bishops serve, including Bishop McElroy, and then they communicated to the California superintendents, who would be John Galvan would be as our director of schools, and the other superintendents within the state of California. And from there, the California Curriculum Committee, on which I serve, was tasked with coming up with modules to address these concerns, to address the material, to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our students, but also making sure that we were better reflecting the modern understandings of this mission era. So they involved a lot of different people in the development of these modules. So it wasn't just the publishing team working on this. It was led by California Indians. It was led by the curator of the Mission Dolores in San Francisco, as well as the subcommittee. But then the St. Mary's Press was commissioned to develop then those fourth grade modules. So I said it earlier, but just to repeat it, this is a requirement for all of the fourth grade Catholic schools within the state of California. So we wanted to make sure that we had the context, we had the information in order to implement it as it was intended. And of course, as an educator, I wanted to make sure when we were first looking at this was based on the California state framework. So as most of you know, our California framework was revised in 2016. We have this document, which you can hyperlink to in the saved presentation as well. And it really is based on what the framework reflects. So, but there were two focus areas identified by the California Conference of Bishops. Number one was ensuring that California Indians are represented throughout the curriculum in a culturally sensitive and historically accurate manner. And two, respecting the genuine holiness and humanity of Saint Julian Serra and his missionary ministry. So these are directly aligned to our standards 4.1 to 4.3. So again, I'd encourage you to take a standards-based approach to this. Look at your standards and think about where these modules fit into the standards, because you're already teaching this material. What we're asking you to do is sort of look again at the content you're teaching within that to make sure it accurately reflects the history and make sure it also accurately represents people are presented throughout the time. So I see that Julie Michler has joined us too. Good news. All right, so there are a total of 3 modules with a total of 15 lessons. And again, they're all online. So at this point, you've probably connected with her. She's perhaps set up your classes or helped you set up your class, and perhaps you've even explored it at this point. All right, now we're going to hear from Miss Emily Sillity, again, a 4th grade teacher at St. Mary's Escondido. She was a pilot teacher last year, so thank you very much, Emily, for agreeing. She's going to speak to her implementation, her noticings too, as she was working with her 4th grade class. Emily.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm really excited to be on this call with you. I had the privilege of being a pilot teacher for this program last year, and I've been teaching 4th grade for 5 years. I've been at St. Mary in Escondido for 10, and I'm just going to go through a couple of my observations and some student feedback, and I'm going to walk you through my experience with this last year very briefly. So with integrating this into our curriculum, at our school, we currently have an outdated social studies book. It's by Houghton Mifflin, and it works fine. However, it was printed in early 2000s. So I was really excited to introduce the St. Mary Press e-course to my class. It fit in very well, like Julie just said about the framework and the standards. The e-course from St. Mary Press covers all of those standards, and so I was able to kind of put the book aside, and at the end of October, beginning of November, when I started piloting the e-course, I was able to just do the St. Mary Press module. And so anything that I covered with those modules, I ended up not recovering. Like, I didn't go back in the textbook and reteach it. I just skipped the textbook and stuck with the e-course modules. As for implementation, the program comes with really detailed and thorough lesson plans. And so I worked through those lesson plans. It's available on the teacher page. I think Julie from St. Mary Press will show us where to find those. You can download them and you can print them if you like. I went through those lessons and I tried to stay really true to what was outlined there and to the activities and the discussion questions. And I started originally in November doing this whole group. at my school, we're one-to-one with Chromebooks, and so we were able to all be on our laptops and all be working through this together and discussing it together. However, after Module 1, after we were comfortable with the digital platforms and my students knew how to log in, we started doing the e-course in groups. And so we utilized a station rotation model with 3 small groups, and one group would be on their laptops and they would be working through the lessons and going through the slides, and then another group would be with me, and we would be having those discussions and asking those deep, higher level thinking questions. And then another group would be doing either an extension activity, extended research, or an exit ticket. And so if you are not one-to-one at your school, it definitely works really well to do it in small groups and to just have a small group of devices going at once. As for content differences, the biggest thing, of course, is our Catholic faith. This program is so well done. I can't speak enough about what a positive experience this program was in my classroom. It really took a truthful look at our history from all perspectives, and I feel like it honored all people involved. And I know that my students got that also. And then at the same time, it was age appropriate. They're old enough to hear the truth and to, ask and answer tough questions, but it was very age appropriate for a 4th grader. Let's see, student feedback. My students loved this. They wanted, if they could have done this all day, every day, they would have just jumped at the opportunity. What they liked the most, it would be the interactive component. They loved the digital interactive with it took e-polls. It gave them the opportunity to type their own opinions and their responses into the computer. They liked seeing the real pictures and real video clips of actual Native people sharing their experiences. It really brought the history alive, and there was a lot of firsthand reporting, and they were very intrigued by it. It definitely engaged them in a way that I hadn't seen from our old program. Tips for success, just some things that I found kind of through trial and error. I would highly recommend printing out the login and passwords for each student, having them put it on a label or cut and glue it and keep it somewhere accessible, whether that's in their planner or on an index card, and you keep them and then pass them out. But having a routine in place for logging in really helped a lot. Also, if you identify your students who are tech savvy, and we have a lot of them, I would recommend kind of having those students have a job, a role in their group of being there in case somebody has a question, so that your students aren't constantly interrupting you with your group where you're trying to have a discussion. If you have a tech person in each group, if they're having issues with their laptop or their device, they can go to that tech person. Also, make sure that the students have headphones. There are a lot of videos and there's audio that it would be helpful for them to hear. The first day that you go to log in, I recommend leaving extra time and maybe even just planning on logging in that first day, because it takes a while. And if you have the ability to do it, I recommend bookmarking the website. Also, the exit tickets are a valuable assessment to figure out what the students are thinking and if it's time to move on and where you're going to go from there, and some things that might need to come up in discussion the next day. All in all, this this experience has been very positive. Julie from St. Mary Press has been so helpful. She had the opportunity to come out and observe my class last year as we were going through one of the lessons, and she had excellent feedback. She was able to help with some technical difficulties. So if there's ever any kind of a glitch or anything, and if you email her, she gets right back to you. So thank you, Julie. That is about what I have. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer about implementation or what it looks like in a classroom, or if you are concerned about devices, you could even do this with just one device and you could project it. So if you have questions, put them in the chat box and I'll see if I can answer them.
Great, and thank you so much, Emily. That was very helpful. We do have a question. How did you assign grades for these modules, or how did you assess students' knowledge throughout the modules?
I assessed on completion of their, in the actual lessons, when they type their response in, we talked about appropriate responses and not appropriate responses and complete answers, and having a response that is well thought out. And so I did grade those for if they did it or didn't do it, and if they followed all of the guidelines. I also informally looked at the exit ticket, but that was, I did grade some of the extension activities with rubrics. That was about it.
Great. Again, it is standards aligned. So if you look at the planning process in your curriculum map or your unit planning process in general, start with your standards, and then your assessments would reflect those standards. So hopefully you are able to, sorry, just moving that out of the way, are able to integrate this fairly seamlessly, because again, we're starting with the standards. Okay. Any other questions for Emily before we move on to Julie Michler? Okay, I don't see any yet, but I will also share, if Emily doesn't mind, her email address at the end. So that way, when I send out the information, so that way you can reach out to her if you have questions about the implementation process from a classroom teacher perspective. All right.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Now we're going to transition over. I think she's with us. Julie Michler?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes. Thank you.
Oh,
all right.
I'm so sorry. It's just all kinds of technical difficulties getting on here.
Worries, no worries. I was a little nervous for a few minutes, but then I saw you come on as Emily was speaking, so.
No doubt. Oh, no doubt. I'm so sorry I'm late.
And I can transition your slides for you if that's good for you.
Yeah, that would be
great. Okay, actually,
so
do you want me to try to presenter, Julie? I can try.
What's that?
I just tried to make you the presenter so you could share your screen if you have the slides up there. Okay.
Let's see. Well, I clicked on it. I just.
Okay, you know what?
I have a map here.
I will go back. I'll make myself the presenter so they'll all see the screen.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm where you are when you're presenting. All right, here we go.
Okay. Let's see. Oh. So what we've done, let me start with a basic introduction. And I'm sorry I didn't hear all of your presentation, Emily. I was very impressed to observe you and Karen Clark last year and see the course in action. So thank you to all the pilot teachers last year who gave us so much wonderful feedback. So we started, St. Mary's Press partnered with the state of California starting a little over 2 years ago to create the course to not only address the new standards, but to, in the words of Bishop Clark, as you can see here, create more of a historical and accurate telling of history, and to respect the experience of the Native Californians from back in the mission era all the way through present times. So the two goals of the course: to represent the Native American experience historically, and also to represent the holiness and also humanity of Saint Junipero Serra. So those are the two main goals of the course. So we worked from our perspective at St. Mary's Press. We had two instructional designers on the project, myself and Melissa Johnson, who also helped author the program, with 3 teachers from the Diocese of Oakland who acted as our advisors and subject matter experts. We've also partnered with many Native Californian groups, both in the content creation phase and in the reviewing phase. So one exciting conversation that I had of many was with Nikki Myers from the Cultural Center and Indian Museum, who said that this curriculum was the best she's seen and that she would support us in any way possible. So those kinds of partnerships have made it very exciting. Did you guys already listen to this video from Bishop Clark?
We did, yes.
Okay. So the course is divided into 3 modules, where we basically look at the state standards 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. So the 4.1 looks at regions and the experience of Native Americans. The module 2 looks at Junipero Serra and the mission era, how the colonization happened, who Junipero Serra was. And then the last module really is an opportunity for the children to put what they've learned into action, and it empowers them to be part of the uniting of California around this new understood history. So you can see that Module 1 has 4 lessons: the geographic regions, the California landscape, Native Californians and their families and rituals. Module 2 has 6 lessons that go from the outside world encountering California through the secularization of the missions. And then Module 3, which brings in some of the religion aspects as well. We talk about the sacrament of reconciliation as a model for healing. We also introduce 2 of the themes from Catholic social teaching. The first is solidarity, and the second is stewardship of the environment, and use the modeling that we've had from Native Californians forever in creating solidarity and living in harmony with Mother Earth. And then the last 2 lessons there, Module 3, give them a chance to put that into action. We started out, when we first developed the course, to imagining a lesson a day. And I think Emily would chime in and probably said that there's virtually no possible way to finish a lesson a day, that some lessons will take maybe even 3 or 4 days because there's so much rich content. And so after last year's pilot year, we went from encouraging this to be a 15-lesson or 15-day course to opening that wide open and recommending that teachers use as long as it takes. From the state perspective, the Education Office and Ray Brunel's office, his viewpoint is if the learning takes up 2/3 of the state standards, so you are free to use up to 2/3 of your social studies time teaching the course, which offers a lot of freedom. The e-learning course is built with lots of national standards on e-learning, and one of the most significant and important is the try-teach method. The Try-Teach method basically uses discovery, exploration, and finding out answers for oneself as the main pedagogy for the student learning. So instead of a teacher or content telling, we use a little bit of content and then interactions where the students can get in and work with the material and figure out the answers for themselves. It employs critical thinking, it is student-centered, it's engaged, active learning, and it really presents the teacher, invites them to be the guide on the side, mediating the learning experience rather than the sage on the stage telling or explaining the learning to the student. It's a far more effective way for learning to happen inside the classroom. And it's very cooperative, it's exciting, it's challenging, and we feel like it really encourages students to embrace the content.
Julie, can I pause for a minute to ask you a question?
Yes. Thank you, please.
We have a question from Laura. Are these lessons available in Spanish as well?
They are not, and we have, we're in conversation about that, and if there are teachers in California who would be willing to come forward and do the translations for us, we could, for next year, for a year from now, have either all or part of the lessons in Spanish. So we might be seeking assistance from teachers in San Diego who might be willing to step in and help with that.
Okay, thank you. And I know you mentioned that too when you were here in May, and
Right.
I'd be glad to collect any interest at this level as well and then pass those names along to you.
That would be great. That'd be great. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, if you would be interested in providing that service, I'm sure there'd be a stipend involved or something for the work, but just let me know and we can communicate that to Julie Meitler.
That'd be great. And then we can put that out to the wider group. In fact, if there were enough teachers in San Diego, I think we talked about that, Julie, as well, that if there were enough teachers in San Diego, that might make it easier, because I'm out there a couple of times a year and we could meet and work on it.
Right.
So if that's a big dream, you know, it may or may not happen, but we could sure put it out there, and I would love to work with San Diego again.
All right. Well, Laura said she's interested in working on it, so.
Oh, thanks, Laura. I appreciate you. Any other questions coming in so far up to this point with the basic modules?
Yeah, not at this point. I'm looking at the chat box, so if you're on the call and you have a question, just type it in and we'd be happy to pass that along to Julie Meitler. Okay.
All right. So benefits of e-learning for students. There are a million of them, and here's just a few. And one of the things I remember Emily, I think, saying last year when I was there, that just having a different kind of platform makes the learning exciting. Through e-learning, we're able to personalize the content. So an ebook is still, while it could be interactive, is still going to be the same content when the student is done with it. Through uploading images, doing a research project, typing in different answers, the content really changes once the students contribute and interact. So it's personalized content. There are scenarios, polls, sequencing activities, multiple choice questions. It involves student decision making. They have all kinds of ways that the content keeps students actively engaged. One of the things I love about it, which Emily kind of touched on, that makes it difficult sometimes to assess in the traditional way, is that in e-learning, failure is never final. If a student gets an answer wrong, if it's one of the scenarios where there is one right answer, oftentimes there are polls where any answer would be correct. But for the ones where there is a correct answer, the student is always going to get feedback that will help lead them to find the correct answer, so that in the end, everybody is always successful. It involves social learning because it's cooperative and they're learning together. The interactions are meaningful. The reading is meaningful, so that it is advanced reading for 4th grade, and I think a lot of teachers And I was just in San Francisco for a training, and the pilot teachers from last year would often have the students do reading in pairs so that they could help one another. The student gets to share their life experiences in the course, and because it moves along pretty quickly and the methods are varied, it keeps students' attention. All of this leads to higher recall and what we call a growth mindset, so that they are growing throughout the program, and anything that is challenging for them, they get a not yet message. You haven't gotten there yet, which we think is a really great educational paradigm to form the students in. So those are the benefits for the teachers. The benefits for students. The benefits for teachers: you can extend the learning. There may be some of the interactions, particularly your second year teaching, when you're a little more familiar with it, that you might want to assign for homework. It'd be great to see students work with their families at home on some of the interactions. The message is consistent throughout, not only your school, but throughout the whole state of California. If a student is absent, they can simply go into the module at home and make up the work. It provides a dynamic classroom environment through the excitement of the digital program, as well as incredibly meaningful and exciting class discussions. The prompts allow you, the teacher, to really mediate some fabulous conversations where the students are able to make sense of the content, apply it to their own lives and their own experiences of living in California. So these two the next two slides should be familiar to all of you. I've tried to, every time I communicate with you, attach these toolbars, and they're going to let you know about the e-learning functions. One that I will point out, this is the top toolbar. Some of you that might have older devices, sometimes this will show up in a side toolbar. So you're basically going to look for that home screen, but this progress bar is going to be your best friend. You click on that progress bar, and when you click on that, on the left side of your screen, you're going to see the name of every one of your students. And you're going to see how many of the modules the students have completed. If you click on their name, you're going to see their work. You're going to see each module and lesson and the percentage they have done. Once you click on one of the lessons, you're also going to see show answers. If you click on that, you're going to see for that particular lesson all of the answers that that one student shared, and it's going to give you a pretty good picture into their participation. You'll see if they're giving meaningful answers or if they're just typing in throwaway answers, like whatever, you know, out in the fourth grade course, but in a confirmation program where we use the same program, one student had just put in "I don't know" or whatever everywhere, thinking that no one was going to look and that he would show completion. So this gives you a look into how well they're engaging in the program. So I would open up, when you're in the program, this toolbar and the next one, the side toolbar, and read the description, and then just click and practice and get to know those functions. I'm looking at the side toolbar now, and that top, what students call the hamburger icon, it's 3 diagonal lines, is your navigational tool. When you click on that, you will see every single module, lesson, and activity and page as a live link, so that you're able to maneuver pretty easily around the program, and that's a great way to direct students. You can all click on the hamburger icon together, and then you can lead them through those clicks to get to the screen that you want to get to. The program will automatically open where you last left off. Most of the time, you're going to go through chronologically, and it's going to put you right where you left off. So you won't need to use this too often, but it'll help you get around easily when you do need to go to another part of the course. I will point out the second progress feature, the one with the squiggly upward arrow. That arrow is a progress feature for one particular activity set. So let's say you have students in pairs working on a matching activity. The matchings tend to be a little bit more challenging, so they're good ones to do in pairs. And that progress bar right there will show you when all of the students have finished that one activity set. So you know when you're ready to move into the discussion following that activity set. You'll also be able to see, oh, most of the students are 80% of the way through, but these two students are only 10% of the way through. I'd better check in with them and see if they need some support. So there's two ways to check progress. The top one for overall progress in the course. The sidebar is to show you progress for one particular activity set. The next slide is tips from your pilot teachers right there in San Diego. And I think Emily probably touched on most of these. We did change the lesson plans. The only thing we changed was taking away any time value, that this activity would take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, where especially your first year, encourage you to let the lesson go. You want to keep it moving, but to let the lesson go as long as the students need, particularly at the beginning when they're getting used to the platform. Things may take a little bit longer until everyone becomes familiar with the functions and how to move through it. So those are the basics of the content and the e-learning platform. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions at this point. Again, the chat box is over on the right-hand side, should be, and you can type in any questions you have. Julie, thank you for being so responsive to our teachers to make sure that they had what they needed to get started this year. We appreciate that. There's two of us who try to keep an eye on the emails, and you know, as Emily was very complimentary, we try to get back as soon as possible. So generally, I'll go over while we're waiting for questions a couple of the typical troubleshooting items that we receive. One of them is when we receive your rosters, we set up the username to be exactly as it is on the roster. So if you have a student whose name is Maria Elena Garcia Gomez, we're going to put in Maria Elena Garcia Gomez as her username. So those are really easy to change. We found the longer names were a little more difficult for students to log in. And if a student is having trouble with their login, you just have to email us. Let's just leave it as Maria Garcia. So we want to be respectful, particularly culturally, of students' names. So just to let you know, we're setting those usernames up exactly as they come to us in the roster, but it's a real easy change to simplify if a student has a particularly long name. Second thing we've had to do, and as the program grows throughout California, we'll see this more and more. If there's a familiar name, so we have a Maria Garcia, there may be 5 of them in California, and we'll just start numbering them. Maria Garcia 1, Maria Garcia 2. So most of the time, your students will be Maria Garcia 1 as the username, and then the password would be Maria Garcia, capitals on the names with no spaces. But you just have to look, and we try to highlight for you when somebody might be a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. Great, thank you, Julie. We do have a question from Kim. She's wondering about how to enroll students.
We do all of the enrolling for you, and you just have to email us your class roster in an Excel sheet. And then what we do is once we have that Excel form, we put it into our template with the username, and then we just upload it. So that's the easiest way to pull that together.
Okay, so Kim, just make sure you have Julie's email address here, and then she'll be expecting that class roster from you. And Julie, can you... There's a slide that says your feedback is always important to us, and that's got mine and Janelle's
emails. Janelle's our administrative support person.
Great. And we also have some resources too on our Basecamp, which I'll share with you in the next slide. Julie, do you have most of our fourth grade rosters at this point? Are you able to speak to that?
Ask that again.
Do you have most of San Diego's rosters at this point for fourth grade?
I do, and if you give me just a second, I will let you know exactly how many. So if there's another question or you want to get started, I can look that up.
So Julie will find that out for us too to make sure to see how we're doing. We should have, I think, we have 42 schools with fourth grade, but then some with multiple classes per grade, so probably about 48, I would expect. All right, and while Julie's looking that up, what's next? Something that's not on here too is we are offering a session on October 4th. We haven't done this before. It will just be for fourth grade teachers. It's on session 3, so you're signed up for the Professional Learning Day. And we've got about, I think, 25 fourth grade teachers signed up for that. And 2 of our teacher liaisons who are fourth grade teachers will be leading that. And it'll be a good opportunity to actually get into the program, share ideas, look at unit plans, look at the connection between the framework and the standards and these modules. And then again, share and discuss best practices with one another. We also, let's see, next step really is to begin that process, begin to plan your units and your lessons within these standards 4.1 to 4.3. We're also suggesting that you send out a fourth grade parent letter in September or October. It's almost the end of September, but good time to do that. And the letter, the sample we have is on our Basecamp. So if you're not currently on our Basecamp, make sure you shoot me an email and I'll add that to you. It's our communication platform that we use in the diocese. So you'll find resources on there. You can ask questions on there. There are questions that have more to do with implementation. The technical questions would really go directly to Julie Michler about the St. Mary's Press piece. And again, communicate on the fourth grade Basecamp. If you've got technical questions, there's the email address. And then I wanted to make sure Elijah or Emily had a chance to just chime in to see if there's anything else that they would like to say with regard to the implementation of the program or their thoughts or any reflections that they had.
Thanks, Julie. This is Elijah Bondi. So it's a great program that I think does a really good job of presenting the Native people in a positive, historically accurate way. And being Native myself, that's something that I really value. And I think one of the big changes that comes with this is that it's a much more meaningful way for our students to engage with the history of the Native people and the missions. And, I think that the tradition of doing the missions project has always been highly valued, but, we're able to move away from that and have something to move into that is really positive. And, the California standards do ask us to move away from building the missions. And so I think using this as that kind of, we're not building missions anymore. It's not standard aligned, it's not culturally sensitive, but we're able to do something that is engaging, that's exciting, that displays this period in history in a culturally sensitive way is important. So I just wanted to add that.
That's a good point, Elijah. Thank you. And it is in the framework. If you look at the California framework, which is linked in these slides, there is a section that talks about how building missions is culturally insensitive. So we want to think of alternative methods. So I know many of you, that's been a tradition in your classrooms for a long time. But again, it is rooted in cultural sensitivity as well as the California framework. So we want you to make sure you take a look at those. And Julie, were you able to find any numbers for us?
Looks like we have 25 schools completed. And I know I have, 25. I'd say schools, 25 teachers already uploaded with class lists. I know there are 2 in the folder, Danielle Callahan and somebody else that's ready to go. So it looks like we just need a small handful, and I can email those tonight.
Okay.
And that way people have my email address to reply with a class list, and I'll CC you, Julie.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for doing that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so we're well on our way.
Okay, sounds good. And I know we're meeting actually next week. I'm meeting in Santa Cruz with the other California curriculum representatives. So we're going to go through our data and look at implementation process so far. So I appreciate anyone's help with that to make sure that we can get us off and running with it. All right.
Okay, great.
Unless anyone has anything else to say, I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank especially Ms. Emily Solity for taking some time to really talk about her experience, and Mr. Elijah Bonde. Thank you again. You left the golf course, Elijah, even though you don't golf, so I appreciate you that time. And then Julie Meikler, of course, thank you for doing that, the technical piece for us, and also providing us an overview of the process. That was very helpful. So again, make sure you communicate on Basecamp, and you should have all the contact information that you need to take your next steps. And we will see you all at the October 4th session if you sign up. So thank you all and have a great night. Take care.
Thanks, Julie. We're feeling